All right, we are live. Let's get you a quick countdown. Just set the mood like we always do. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast, episode 5. If I'm counting right, I believe we're at 5. Welcome to my humble abode. The lighting is wonderful. We got 2 lights behind me, but one of them flickers. So this is what we got. Hopefully everything's okay. Hey, DNA Hemp in the building. Thanks for stopping out. No, I appreciate everybody swinging out here tonight. We'll give you a minute to hop on. While we do that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to light up your auditory senses for another amazing episode of our podcast, brought to you by the fantastic sponsors at Higher Love Cannabis of Michigan. Higher Love Cannabis, as you know, or if you don't know yet, should be your go-to destination in the Upper Peninsula. When it comes to premium cannabis products, they set themselves above. They grow everything in living soil, edibles, flower. I've only messed with the flower so far. It's on point for sure. It's delicious. It's no wonder they got a few awards for it. But looking forward to trying some edibles this weekend. I apologize. These headphones that we're using on the fly here are interesting. But super appreciate their support in the movement and in the podcast, making things possible even while we're on the road here. So again, shout out to Higher Love. And without further ado, let's introduce the man of the hour, the handsome fella to my right. If you're looking at my screen, it might be left on yours. Nobody's sure. We've got Dustin. Dustin, let's get you in here, buddy. How you doing, sir?
Hey, good. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. I'm doing pretty well. Apologize for we didn't get too much time to chat ahead of time because, well, it's just life on the road these days. But appreciate you stopping out. Looks like Ashley's saying hello. Susie, thanks, guys, for stopping out. Appreciate the support. But why don't we kind of get kick it off here, Dustin? Can you tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what you do with the USDA?
So yeah, I came from a law enforcement background years ago, but I started working in the or exploring the cannabis industry in 2015. Out in it was 2014 actually, out in Colorado, right after it became legalized for recreational uses, and then I started exploring out in Northern California in 2016 during the time that state became legal. And then from there, I just got involved with networking with all the local farmers and the legislature, and so I, would go to the Capitol and meet with everybody and chat with them about the legislations that are all being thrown out there. But the USDA created these agent positions for sampling, and so I got involved with that, and so now I'm able to teach others and help advance their operations. So that's where I've been now with the USDA for, this will be going on the 3rd year.
Right on. Well, that's awesome, and that's a pretty neat as far as, kind of what we're looking at as far as legalization, and even just helping so people understand the hemp industry, which obviously is quite a thing to grasp and to fully understand as far as, intoxicating effects from hemp, which, a few years ago, I think that would have been something that people probably wouldn't have thought was possible. But I can imagine you stay pretty busy with that and the law changes and everything. So appreciate you stopping out to help us get a little clarity on some of the stuff here. So to kind of get things rolling here, let's the basics. Let's start with the basics. could you explain to us what is your understanding of the difference? I don't like the to me it's a derogatory term, but I think in this case I got to use it just to kind of help kick this thing off. What is your understanding is the difference between marijuana and hemp? Is it just a term? Is it a completely different plant? Can you kind of break that down for us a little bit?
Well, as far as the term marijuana, I don't even use that term. I just refer to everything as cannabis. They're
Sure.
all in the same family. They all have the same characteristics. Um, cannabis, hemp, whatever. But as far as that goes, yeah, the whole hemp industry helps. The name itself actually just helps make normalize it in a way. So there's just a lot of differences between the two industries, or I like to look at it as one big whole industry. But we'll just have two sectors. You got the hemp, and then you got the other industry, which includes medical and recreational. And there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings on how the USDA, the Farm Bill that came out in 2018, and how that affects any changes in legislation for the medical and or recreational bills that may or may not come out in the future.
Sure. No, and I think that's a really good point that you bring up there, because it's my understanding is, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong on this. If you're growing, let's say, some female hemp plants, so they're going to be looking just like, again, your psychoactive cannabis that's sold in legal states. It's going to look the same, in the early stages of its life. If you're growing hemp, under a license from the USDA, my understanding would be you could test the plant while it's still, rooted in the ground, and it could definitely pass as hemp by definition of the Farm Bill. But my understanding would be that, as you trim the plant, you trim off the extra leaves, you let it dry, you let it cure, that's when the THC concentrate would be going up. And if that is correct, do you guys do testing at different stages, or kind of how does that work?
Well, there's a curing phase. Think of it just like any other fruit, bananas. You buy them when they're green, you let them ripen, cure, and they become sweeter and tastier, I guess, So,
Sure.
That's a whole different process. But as far as the testing goes, when we test 30 days in advance to harvest.
Okay.
Or outside that box is fine too, but generally it's 30 days from when I show up, you have 30 days to harvest.
Okay.
That's the USDA rule on that.
Okay.
So what else? What was the other question regarding testing?
As
Talked
far
about
as,
that
so,
already.
like, no, you're good. I feel like, so my understanding of the plant and everything is that, the THCA conversion is what happens when it's harvested, and that's when the THCA numbers would start climbing. But the
Yeah,
Delta 9 should be sticking close to the same, and that's why you're able to test it 30 days before.
so I'm not a I'm not I'm not a scientist, but I understand that Delta 9 and THCA are similar, but Delta 9 is the heated version of THCA. THCA is most raw form of THC. In other words, you
Sure.
harvest the plant, that's THCA. Okay. So in order for it to convert it requires energy. But there is the presence of Delta 9 still can exist mostly for outdoor plants, from my understanding. And it's only in a limited small forms due to oxidization and energy from the sun. So it can still test for Delta 9 on when it's in its raw form. The THCA will still be of a higher value over Delta 9, especially in its raw form.
Sure. Nope, and I agree with that. As far as to just help, probably one of the hottest topics that have been discussed quite a bit here in the group recently, well, since its inception, has been so THCA. By definition, THCA is the state of THC before it's lit on fire. And I think that people, again, when did you first start hearing about THCA flower? Maybe that would kind of help me with kind of my journey through the industry and stuff. Like, was it around since 2018?
Yeah, everything you see in the dispensaries is THCA. It's just in a higher value because THCA. Let's just go back to 2018 with the Farm Bill, and the beginning of the whole hemp program. All right, and I'm just going to name some common popular strains that a lot of Wisconsin hemp farmers, probably had in their fields. So we'll just use the term or the strain wife or sour space candy. Those strains tested with THC for under 0.3% or 0. Under the 0.3% standard that's regulated under the Farm Bill. So that's still THCA. It's just in its low percentage form. So there's really it all depends on the strain. It all depends on the strain.
Well, and so this is where, so when I started in the industry, it would have been early 2020, right around 2020. Okay, the flower that we were selling at that time, right? It looked like cannabis that you would get from a legal state, but you could tell it was a little different and it was a little stickier. So essentially, it was hemp. It was testing very low for THCA because when you would light it on fire, there was no psychoactivity. It was, very low THCA content.
Right.
And what people were doing was spraying that flower with Delta 8 distillate to give you a mild high. And it that's what you accomplished there. Where now the flower has no spray on it, and it is just a very high THCA content compared. And I only started seeing that about 6 months ago, where I was working. But my understanding is it was about probably 6 months before that. I know some folks were starting to get on the train, but I think there's still a lot of people that grow hemp and infuse it with THCA. However, there are people that are growing cannabis and harvesting it early to get below that threshold. But then it still cures, and then it's still able to be lit on fire by itself to give you that psychoactive properties.
Well, speaking on that, speaking on the what you just said there, there are remediation methods. I'm not going to get into that. That's between the farmer and the labs that they choose. But at the end of the day, if they're running commercial products, through dispensaries and stuff. So, you'd expect that it should all be in line with the rulings. But there's just right now there's just a lack of enforcement, I should say. It's like nobody really knows what to do on from the executive side of things. And the USDA is the only ones that are out there, testing and helping grow the industry and keep it. I guess I don't want to say the word control, but at the end of the day, if you're running a commercial farm, there should be a chain of custody, so that people know where their crops are coming or their products that they're consuming are coming from. And that's really all I have to say about that. But as far as the THCA, if they're running under a USDA license, they should be having that inspected by us. So I can't speak on behalf of every farm, but I have experienced farms that have had their crops have gone hot, and there's also a big misconception of, do I have to burn my crops and film it? DAT cap used to do that. No. As a matter of fact, one of the disposal methods is composting it, and it's more on an honor system. There's no photo. You don't have to take photos because all of the farms, the very few farms I had that had hot crops, I just recommend composting. You don't have to burn them.
Sure.
And great compost, you know, use it for next year type of thing. So,
Sure. No, that makes sense. And I actually just had a kind of a squirrel moment in my head here, if you will, but a question just in, because I'm picturing you going out to different farms and doing the testing and, to be able to see different setups and that. Just out of curiosity, do a lot of the farms you go to grow more than just hemp? Or is it typically the farms that you're seeing focus mainly on hemp? Just kind of curious.
um, you can't tell. I mean, it all looks the same. Okay. So I mean, from my experience, I can look at certain strains and recognize that strain as I recognize it from experience. Um, but you really can't tell until testing, and neither can the
Oh, and
farmer
I'm
at the end
sorry,
of the
I should have. Sure. And I'm sorry, I meant just, and again, this is kind of like just off topic, but do a lot of people grow strictly like cannabis, or do a lot of places you go to, are they doing cannabis and corn and other crops as well? I was just kind of curious
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah.
to see
Are you
what,
saying like is cannabis or hemp their exclusive crop they're
yeah,
growing?
yeah,
Most of
yeah.
them, no. As a matter of fact, I would say 9 out of 10 farms that I've gone to, a lot of them are homesteaders or they're new to homesteading or they run their own food sources and stuff, or they
Oh,
run
very
a
cool.
soil company. I had one farm where they run a soil company, as
Sure.
their main product off of their land. Um,
Right on.
So right now, I mean, a lot of these farmers are just trying to get into it as a hedge and see where it goes from there. Um, there is a decent percentage of those farms that I've been to that do it for personal grows. Where I
Mhm.
would go out there and they only have like 4 or 5 plants, and they're you know like in a gallon pot. They're not that big, but that's just their personal like stuff, but they go through the same procedures with the USDA. They log in and get an account with the USDA, and they get their track number, field number, lot numbers. So
And
yeah,
and when you say like field numbers in that, is that like if you're doing a grow, if you're doing two different strains or something, are those strains registered with you guys as well, as far as like you have a pretty good pulse on exactly what's going on with the grow?
not initially, but upon when I arrive for test to field test the crops, yes, we get that strain information.
Okay. No, that's cool. And I think that makes sense because you gotta, obviously some are gonna test different. And then if you guys wouldn't know that, it just makes sense that you're kind of mapping out the grow and with something as far as the properties that this plant can have and kind of keeping those in check. That's just a neat thing to
Yeah.
know that that's a
I
legalization.
get a copy. The USDA sends me so all of the testing results that come off the farms, uh, the lab sends me copies along with the owners of the farms. So I see
Yeah.
all of the results.
Okay. No, that's cool. As far as when we're talking too, so is it kind of a random draw as far as who gets tested, or because when you say you could have 4 or 5 for your personal that you're growing, is it so it's not based on, okay, once you hit 10 plants we're going to come up and be checking. Do you guys kind of randomly pick, or do the farmers know, hey, every March here, or obviously March is probably not much going on in a crop, but if it's outdoor, but is it kind of a set schedule as far as, hey, this is when we come check it out, or when it's getting close to harvest you let us know and we
No,
come check it out? Or
no, that's on the farmer. So when when they get their USDA license, they get an account through the website. Or they access and log into their portal. They can see everything on their farm right on the USDA portal, and they can edit. all of their crops or lots and make changes if necessary. And from there, the rest of them. So hold on, I lost my train of thought here. The farms, once they're logged in, there's no list from my understanding, and I can't see the list of other USDA agents in the state. Right now, it's mostly word of mouth, and or when they finally register or sign up for a testing event through the USDA portal, it'll give them local contacts of USDA hemp sampling agents. And
Okay.
I would say more than half of the farms I tested were all through the portal. They just found me. Um, mm, the rest were all through word of mouth.
Okay.
Because
No, that's
right
cool.
now, I haven't spoken to many other USDA hemp sampling agents, so I'm not sure who else is covering other territories. You know what I'm saying? So,
Sure. No, that makes sense. We do have a couple people asking about THCA flower availability in the state. Today's studio, which is a hotel room, is sponsored by Tabby's out of Waukesha, Wisconsin. Actually got a chance to stop out there by them today. I'm going to drop their website in the comments for you guys. It's just tabbies.com. And if you use code BEANS20, that gets you 20% off, so you can give it a try. It's all shipped legally, tested. And again, it definitely has some medicinal properties as far as what it can do for effects and helping you with that. One of the interesting things that I've come across is, so if I look at a COA from a Michigan flower, is it true that there would be strains that are grown in Michigan that would be able to be considered hemp in Wisconsin, as far as cannabis versus hemp? Or
yeah,
have you
of course.
seen any of that in your
Yeah,
case?
yes, I've been to countless dispensaries throughout the entire country. I think I went to like 30 states. I've been to, it was like 30 states in 2 years, um, checking out everything about their whole programs. And yeah, I've seen CBD products, hemp products in those dispensaries, and it's becoming more and more common ever since the 2018 Farm Bill came out. So there's still, in other words, like in my opinion, there's still room for growth for the Wisconsin hemp farmers as far as such dispensaries, even out of state.
Sure. No, right on. Another question that was brought up in the comments here, ahead of time, somebody had reached a couple of bit, had sent some messages over. Have you seen an influx or a decrease? So let's say since 2018, when the Farm Bill went out, I'm guessing that there's a lot more farming or licenses that would be going out at the launch of a new product, a new commodity. Have you seen that number go up or come down over the last couple of years here?
Well, you're referring to hemp in general,
Yeah, yeah.
biomass?
Sorry, yep. In Wisconsin here, yeah. Like, is there more farmers than there were 4 years ago? Is it you're
Oh,
getting
no.
more checks or less checks?
It's been volatile. I would say there's been a lot more participation with the USDA version, um, or at least cooperation. I should rephrase that there. So the cooperation with USDA farmers in Wisconsin has increased this past year, but the number of farmers, it's hard to say because everything changed to the USDA. Okay. Whereas originally it was all through DACAP starting in 2018, and the numbers bounced up and then it kind of dropped right before it went into the USDA. So I haven't seen what those numbers are, but I can only, I'm going to, I really don't have much to say about that other than uh, a lot of the farmers, the established ones that have branding and they're already in the market, and they've been around. A lot of those companies have been around since the beginning of the whole Wisconsin hemp program. Yeah.
Well, and that makes sense. I just trying to just see the landscape. If it's like with THCA, it just seemed like the few companies that I knew around the Fox Valley, they really seemed to start growing or expanding their amount of greenhouses, or going to outdoor grow on top of the in-grow, or adding an
Yeah.
indoor grow to the outdoor.
Well, you were talking
When
about,
someone,
oh, go
oh,
on.
go ahead, man.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
you're good.
Earlier you mentioned about like, quality of flower that you've seen in other dispensaries in other states. And I'm not saying that there's not that quality in Wisconsin, um, but a lot of that is indoor, and the indoor you get the better quality um, overall, um, but the cost to run indoor is extremely expensive, and that's a whole nother topic right there. But it's all related to the energy costs, and the
I can
price and the price for the crops, just like any
sure.
other.
I can just attest to seeing, yeah, the whole when I saw somebody was starting an indoor grow, for hemp, and um, it was just like, I knew there would be lights involved and stuff, but I was following the process, checking in on a week, another week, and it's like, wow, yeah, that's a lot of equipment, that's a lot of light power. You're mimicking the sun's output. You got a dehumidifier running. I mean, yeah, it's no joke. You're basically
Yeah.
creating the perfect environment, which is obviously not just
I mean, I
just bringing it
remember
outside in.
I remember out in when I was out in Northern California, there was this farm that had a 40 lighter, and 40 lighter meaning they had 40 lights, but they were all 1,000 watt HPS bulbs. They weren't LEDs, and their energy bill was about 10 grand a month.
All
So
right. Well, so you might want to take out a loan if you're doing indoor, or plan ahead quite a bit.
right,
Get some
yeah.
investors. There you go. Is it your understanding, as far as, would you be comfortable sharing where your stance is on, like, what you feel maybe would be a good cannabis plan for the state of Wisconsin? Like, do you think we should start medical, or um, if you wanted to touch on the bill that was presented, and just if you think that would be, just from your understanding of how it works, as far as what we have right now with the hemp industry, and you look at the states around us. Did you want to just kind of give your perspective on that?
I could, yeah, I could dig in a little bit there. Well,
Sure.
as far as medical, from my understanding, there hasn't been one state in the country that has legalized weed before legalizing cannabis before um, setting up a medical cannabis program. In other words, the common trend across the country is medical cannabis has to happen first, mainly, and you have my opinion on that, for quality purposes, quality control, chain of custody, trying to just get a grasp of how this is going to play out in that particular state. But you know, that's not to say you can't just fully legalize too and have it all combined at the same time, same moment, I guess. But that hasn't been done yet. And then what was the second part of that?
About that. Oh, is it? Would you, if you were able to give a little piece of advice on the medical bill that
Oh,
was
oh,
proposed,
yeah, yeah.
or yeah, what are your just kind of general take? Again, I don't need you to point fingers or anything.
Yeah. I'm concerned about the state-run dispensaries, but at the end of the day, medical cannabis it's medical, so it technically shouldn't be taxed. It should fall under the same tax-free incentives as any other medical expense. So yeah, that you go from there, build off that.
No, that's understandable. As far as the group goes, I'd like to see if you guys had some questions that we could answer for you while we have the chance to talk a little more about the plant itself today. Trying to keep it a little bit more of a focused episode, just as we're going to be doing 3 a week. I want to try to keep it where we're really kind of breaking down a topic at hand. So definitely would be interested if anybody here joining us has any questions that we could ask. I think that'd be great for Dustin here. We got a couple comments that actually just popped up. Let's see if we got any questions. We've got the state-run dispensaries are a terrible idea. Is a take we've got here. Medical in Colorado is an 8% tax. Recreational is 28. That was in 2018. Yeah, it's interesting how, again, I think I kind of touched on this the other night, but I think it does have a place as far as the tax, and it can be used for the right things. And obviously that's got to be a key part of it. But it is still just a little interesting that something that's just a commodity that's grown, and we have to apply the tax on it. But I think again that's kind of a further down the road battle, in my opinion, just because
right.
there's so many issues with it to begin with. So
right, and I always say the best the best compromise is when neither party is satisfied.
Sure.
And
Right.
at the end of the day, when whatever bill is presented and passed, can always be amended. I'll use Florida for example. When they legalized medical cannabis, they had a state grant go out to one company, and they ran all these dispensaries, and then, but it wasn't allowed smokable at first, and then it took a couple of years, and then the Florida Supreme Court overruled that, and then had to change to smokable. Like you can now vape, buy dabs, and buy flower.
Sure, by the different sides of it.
So there's a lot of things that still can be changed on any bill. It's what you want is a bill that has that path for such changes at the very least.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure. We do have a question. Philip says, will the USDA testers be the ones who test our cannabis? Do you know? Has that been discussed at all?
Depends on your location. I right now, I mostly cover southeastern Wisconsin right now, and I've had contacts out in all over the state. We'll say, all the way out to La Crosse and even way up north, and it's hard to get up there, especially during harvest. The crunch time of harvest season. There's still farms out there that run environmentally controlled greenhouses throughout the years, some indoors, very few indoors. And a lot of the indoors are still very small at this point. So, right now I try to get to everybody if I can.
True.
But this is only growing, and we're trying to recruit more field agents for that, and we got some farms too that are open to allow for training on that aspect too as well, to help accelerate that.
That's awesome. Is it a full-time job as far as what they're looking for to fill?
No, it can be. It depends on how many farms are in certain areas of the state, and but as this industry grows, it's going to become more and more saturated with farms and people involved. At the end, you also have to look at the possibility of the USDA evolving to starting to test final products. You have your product or your crops, it's tested at with the USDA, and then you want to commercially put it in through dispensaries. Once that final product is done, or a prototype of that product should also be tested eventually too, I would assume. we'll see how it all changes, because every year they're adding
Something.
new rules to the entire program. So
Right on. Is it shoot, I had a quick question. We were just so that you said as far as the testing process, oh, it'll come back to me. Tammy, I didn't mean to pass up your question. I see I missed it though. She was asking, why is hemp farm bill stuff banned in recreational states? I know there's a lot of pressure from, so like the company I worked for prior, we had our busiest Delta 8 and now THCA dispensary. Our busiest one that looks like a Starbucks is actually out in Virginia, where there is medical dispensaries. But again, when you have quality products that are done right, they can have very similar effects to of what you would expect from a medical dispensary. But again, the issue in Wisconsin and a lot of these states is there's no regulation. So even if a product works well for you, we're entrusting that the company is doing everything, in a fair manner. And I know I've met a lot of people that appear to be doing that, and that's great to hear. But I still think there's got to be some checks and balances. But again, the thing we tend to run into in today's world or today's government, it seems like, is like it almost feels like there's a lot of over control a lot of times with things. So it's kind of weird to be asking for like some control, or it's really just some quality checks. When you got a restaurant, you can expect a food inspector or cleanliness, and that is going to be checked from time to time. You can lose your license, and obviously you guys as field agents, you're going to be checking the crop. But my understanding would be obviously you're not, like you said, you're not looking at the end product as far as how it's processed or anything like that. It's specifically the plant in its natural form, correct?
correct. I did reach out to the USDA, the lab technicians individually, earlier, or last year, I should say. And they are willing to do final product testing. It would be a separate fee for the farmer, but they're open to the idea. So we'll see if next season they start coming out with paperwork, more and more paperwork, for
Sure.
that type of stuff.
Oh
But as
yeah,
far as what Tammy was saying, yeah, a lot of these recreational states also some of the states have laws and policies in place where they don't allow products into their dispensaries from outside of their state. Some of the states, like Ohio, for example. I visited Ohio last year, and their state doesn't allow any other products inside their dispensaries outside of Ohio. They don't even allow, even though, yeah, their laws just changed though. They're now recreational. So I haven't updated myself with Ohio's law.
okay. Yeah, I'm sure
So
it's a long one.
yeah,
Well, that goes. We did have Ashley had a question. Who gets to prescribe medical cannabis? That's a great question because I can
I
imagine.
mean, obviously we don't have a program in place with the state of Wisconsin right now, but other states I've seen
Okay.
it. I'll go back to Florida. But they have doctors that you just, hand them over your medical history, and they
Sure.
review it. You know,
They go back and forth.
you pay a fee for the authorization, and yeah, they have a card, medical card, and then you're limited to what you can buy per month. And Ohio is the same way. You get a medical card. Or actually, no, Ohio. I don't think. No, they didn't have a medical card. You just show them your driver's license, I think, and it's inside of the system.
Okay. And that would make sense.
Once you're an established patient. I think that's how they used to have it. Yeah, when I was out there last.
Okay. Waldo Hempworks had a question. Do you happen to know if they're dropping the state-run lab requirement for hemp testing?
Well,
As far as you've heard?
as far as the USDA goes, you can use any lab as long as it's got a DEA certification. That's what they like. That's what the USDA wants. And there's still labs out there that are still trying to get updated with that. But right now, the USDA lab is the easiest and the most. It's the cost for it for the farmer is like it's right in the middle of where it should be. It's like perfect because the everything, all of your tests that you get back, all the results are uploaded on your portal, so you can automatically look at it, download it, print it off, whatever. Whereas all these other labs don't have a central point portal, and you just wait for them to mail or email your results, and then once the farmer gets those results, then they have to print it out and then they have to mail it to the USDA.
Gotcha.
So like the average test cost rate ranges, I've seen labs do it for $30, and the USDA, or I've seen from like $30 to $60, and the USDA
okay.
I think it's about 50.
Kind of right in the middle.
Yeah, it's kind of like right in the middle, and it depends on and you have the different options for if you just want to do THC only versus like a full profile, including heavy metals, and that gets into the $100 range.
We did have a quick input here from Cindy. Appreciate some input here. She said in Illinois and other states, it's not a prescription. It's an endorsement by a prescriber, such as an MD or an NP. I used to provide them as an NP in Illinois. That's good to know.
Endorsement, like a certificate?
That's
just
almost,
like a written.
Yeah,
that's how Lydia's law was written with Wisconsin.
Okay, and Cindy, if you could just touch on that, if you got a second, that'd be cool. We've got a couple more messages popping up here. And also they test for pesticides and other things for their state medical or rec. Okay, that would make sense. What do we got here? What will or does Wisconsin consider to be medically necessary, acceptable? Yeah, that's going to be the devil's in the details, as we know, especially when it comes to politics.
My advice to that is, and I have experience in with the whole medical issues and stuff regarding CBD products in the past, but just be open with your doctor. That's the best thing. Like right now, like any one of your doctors, especially your primary, just be open and honest. So.
Cassie's got some input here. She said for Illinois, you have to get your MMJ through the state or any doctor or website. Then you take your card to the medical dispensary, and a bud tender would help you with your needs. I do not want to go to the dispensary and talk to a pharmacist. LOL. I can see. I get what she's getting at there.
Okay.
And I can, yeah.
In other words, you don't want. I kind of get what she's saying. Like, so you don't want to have medical cannabis in the same dispensary as traditional pharmacy,
like a CVS or something.
Yeah,
there was and it's hard because obviously there's an article kind of for anything out there to support any side of anything, but this sadly makes sense that like the drugs at a pharmacy are not that expensive, but people sign waivers that are selling it, and it's when it goes through insurance, it costs more, and it's just I could see where you'd want to kind of leave the cannabis out of that, where if Green Farms is paying the state more, you don't want to have to worry about that. That's where I think your something similar to like a bud tender, or somebody who's educated on the cannabis plant, who is just like when you go to a car dealership, they shouldn't be pushing you into a certain car. It should be what's most effective for you. So I can see where she's coming from as far as you don't want to just walk up and say, here's my concerns, and get one option, because that's what they're looking to move. So
right,
I think I get where she's kind of coming across with that. And as at least for me, and I'm assuming this is most people, there different strains affect me more effectively for certain things than other strains, and that's kind of the beauty of the plant is, what the strain that helps me, be the most creative and get the most done, that might not be how it affects you. And it's not really a perfect science. There's definitely going to be some strains that are more likely to help with certain symptoms or with certain things, but again, everybody's different. So it's just it really is kind of a magical plant. It's not just super cut and dry.
Right.
as far as this is going to help with that, that'll help with this,
Well,
So
there's
I think
also
kind of
different
keeping that
products
open.
out there too, besides just
Exactly.
smokable flower, So, and it's just going to keep growing, you know,
Right.
inventing new
Uh,
products.
right. Oops, I missed one more question here. Well, I missed a couple. In Arizona, they have a private certification center, and also my regular doctor or MD did the paperwork for the cert. If you lack in medical records, some cert centers have a chiropractor that you see, and they do the recommendation.
Interesting. Because that falls in um chiropractors like massage therapy, they kind of go hand in hand. Chiropractor has a PhD, but I'm not a doctor, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. But it's
Right.
becoming more of a holistic medical where people recognize,
As far as that goes. Waldo had a good question. Waldo Hempworks, do you think someday insurance will cover medical marijuana, cannabis, or CBD? What's your opinion? I feel
I
like
mean,
at
they have
least
that
in
one
the
drug already out there for
oh yeah,
that.
um,
I forgot what it's called.
starts with an M, mixin, something like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
there's
that's the only,
still. I mean, even with the majority of states being some form of legal cannabis, man, it's still just as far as the federal government and the whole the war on drugs, and I feel like there's still so much stigma that has to be broken through. And it's the people, shout out to the people of this page, like even like me, this is my passion, so of course I'm loud and proud about it, wearing Blaze Orange and everything,
yeah,
because that's where I'm at. But the people who are in a job where people still look down on you for it, like kudos to you for trying to work on ending that stigma too. And that's where it's kind of like a community effort to educate, because really that's what it is. The people who are so against cannabis, like you just bring it up and it's like, oh no, we don't even like. I feel like if they actually learned about it, they wouldn't be able to say that that was a fair stance that they have. It's just this connotation that's been carried with it for so many years now. Like a great example would be, it was hemp up until the war on drugs. It was hemp and cannabis, then the war on drugs, and now every bill you see, every piece of everything's marijuana. Textbooks, marijuana. It's like it just, where did the cannabis go? Like we're kind of having to rewire our brains just because that's how we were brought up. That it's marijuana, it's the bad. So unfortunately, I think we're still a ways out from you know um, getting any kind of medical coverage. And there's still part of me that, especially now hearing that the Tavern League is not against legalization in the state, which to me makes sense. And that was my hope. But there's still just so much that needs to be done, as far as it just seems like there's so many people that are still so against the M word, and that's all they can use. So fortunately, I think we got a ways to go with that yet. But again, that's what we're here for. That's what we're creating awareness, and that's what we do. Oh, here we go. Marinol. That was
oh yeah,
the
there's
drug.
Marinol, and then no, there's that tincture that's out there for
Epidellux. I can't
yep,
I can't
yep. I
read.
knew, yeah,
Epidellux.
thought it started with
Okay.
an E.
Well, that's a
But
good start, though. At least we got something.
yeah, but I mean, realistically,
Pretty research.
in my opinion, like the best insurance at first when you're trying to create this program is the limited grow your own or the caretaker system, because at least like you could still access products and not have to pay for it, you know. So
Well, and so just like Aaron said here, indicas work awesome with my PTSD and anxiety and my back issues. I love using compared to pills. I feel that. That's where I use my gummies almost every night now for pain, so I don't have to take acetaminophen. Again, to me, a simple plant compared to, you know what? I would really be interested to see how they even make like a Tylenol. Something that's so easily accepted in today's society. I feel like, again, it's not just going to be, oh, here's some rosemary and lavender and just sprinkle it to get, you know what I mean? Like there's got to be some pretty serious concocting that goes into making some of this stuff. That's, again, as long as a doctor prescribes it, a lot of people are fine with it. So, but again, that's what we're here for. Been wearing the LLW hoodie at my work bar, and lots of compliments. Hey, that's what's up, man. Appreciate it, Justin. DNA Hemp says education is key, 100%. Jennifer, and actually, because I think she's going to be talking on it here, I think an episode should explore the legal hazards. Say you get busted with what you thought was hemp, the police or DA tested it, it legally comes back as cannabis. Yeah, that could be an episode, and I've had a few people reach out that's happened to, who have bought THCA flower that ends up testing hot. One specifically was in the summer, an ex-customer, because I'm not in the industry anymore, had purchased THCA flower, left it in their glove box, not realizing that it decarbed because it was a hot summer day and got hot enough in that glove box to decarb. So, I mean, it tested like you couldn't even grow a plant this hot. And of course, it came back and tested positive. In my opinion, it's such a tough area because, you know, if it's in a sealed container that you bought somewhere and it's labeled hemp, then in my opinion, it should go to a chain of custody. You know, if it's sealed from where you bought it, you got the receipt, you can, you know, you didn't open it yet. How can you control how that's going to test? Now, the thing that happens is if that jar's open, then I could see where, you know, the police, whoever it may be, they'd have to be like, well, it could be anything. So you know, that would be a little tougher. So that's kind of a tough one all around. But have you ever run into any personal stories of that as far as it goes,
I mean, as far as that goes, so like law enforcement, when they field tested, they have their little packs that they keep in their squad cars, and it just tests positive or negative. It doesn't show the percentages, but they're not saying that there's not new technology that has been coming out, because I've been chatting with some police officers regarding the testing aspect, and there are agencies in Wisconsin that are in the process of testing new field test kits for cannabis to be able to determine whether it's hemp under 0.3%, you know, the threshold there. But right now I don't know, it's still kind of up in the air because everybody's trying to test new products. But at the end of the day, and, you know, goes through the court, it still has to get tested by a lab for the discovery upon, you know, a trial. So, you know, their law enforcement generally sends their stuff to the state crime labs, but that's not to say that it could send it to another third-party DEA certified lab to get multiple results. Sure. From the same material. So,
question that I can kind of tie into a comment we got here, because I firmly believe, just personally, that I like to see bills passed for legalization of that where people are able to grow their own. Obviously, I don't know. It's still a gray area as to like the freedom of, you know, you should be able to grow whatever crop you want and that, but especially for people, if it's, you know, 6 plants or something, you know, something that's enough to kind of get you by and stuff. And it's a lot, let me tell you folks, it's a lot more work than you think it's going to be, but it's definitely, you know, it doesn't hurt to look into if it were to go legal and stuff, but just, it doesn't just grow like a weed. Like it may, you know, it kind of, in my head, that was my thinking when I was, you know, learning the growing process and stuff with the hemp farmer. Gosh, just as far as like amendments and nutrients and light cycles and well, I guess light cycles aren't too crazy, but, you know, just it's a very complex plant, which is to be understood. Have you heard of any places that have gone legal, or do you have an idea, Dustin, as far as even if it is really small grows that would be legal in Wisconsin? And let's say, you know, the influx is like you said, obviously they're going to need more agents, but, you know, if they'd probably even want to be checking in on, you know, like let's say the city of Green Bay all of a sudden has 500 people that are doing these small grows. Do you know if they plan to check on like every growing situation Or have you just kind of heard of in any legal states how that works?
No, I haven't heard anything on that aspect right now. It's just kind of just all hanging there in the wind, um, until, well, there is new rumors that are coming out regarding the DEA rescheduling it to a Schedule 3, but that's a totally different conversation.
Sure.
I'm still reading, getting updated on all that myself.
Yeah, that'll keep you busy for a while, I'm
But
sure.
when it gets changed to a Schedule 3, that's going to open the doors for research, at least, right away.
Right.
So we'll
That would be
see
huge.
how that rolls out.
Sure. Waldo Hempworks brings up a great point, and this is something I always made sure to tell every single customer every single time. This would be legal state as far as if you're in Michigan, you're in wherever, or you're buying hemp in Wisconsin. Always keep the products in their original container and keep the receipt. It just makes things easier as far as things go. Because again, hemp, especially THCA flower, if you were to look at it, you would not know the difference until you get some testing done.
Keep it in a
What do we got
lockbox in
here?
your trunk,
Right. That's a good point.
just because of the smell.
Right. Susie says, I wore my Let's Legalize Wisconsin hat and my pot socks to my medical procedure today. They didn't say anything. LOL. That's awesome. Susie rocks. Susie, did you watch The Big Lebowski yet? You got to see it. Oh my gosh. Josh says Susie takes RSO. RSO is the way to go. 101 RSO for full spectrum effects, especially. I can't believe these earbuds. I've worn these earbuds probably 50 times and they've never fallen out. I don't know what's going on in this hotel room. Maybe my altitude is, maybe I'm too far out there. I don't know what the hell's going on. I blame Madison. I don't get to Madison too often. I read awesome while I was trying to say often. Dustin, you gotta help me here, man. I'm just falling apart. We've got Lisa says, will a breathalyzer ever work for law enforcement in aiding an arrest? Will it be 100% accurate? I know there's at least one manufacturer of some kind of a field test that can go. I think it was up to just 2 hours. Can tell if there's consumption within 2 hours. When you just think of the landscape of technology, you would think there's got to be something. And I don't like to be like a conspiracy theorist, but if you look at how bad cannabis has been, it almost it doesn't aid law enforcement, and they probably would love to see an actual test that works, but it kind of helps push the agenda of, oh, it's going to be really hard to legalize when there's not a testing device for it. But like the how you can like have a thing in your arm and it's watching your blood sugar level now for your for diabetics and stuff. Like there's so much technology. I just find it hard to believe if we focused our efforts with some of the best. Microsoft, if you got Microsoft in a room, Apple and Google, and said, all right, we need to figure this out. I feel like within a week they would figure out some kind of device that could tell if you've consumed cannabis, recently enough to warrant some kind of a ticket for bad behavior.
Yeah, that's a definitely good question. We'll see what happens. But you did bring up that point you mentioned, though. Does bring light to an idea, though. Like, how long did it take with alcohol once after Prohibition? How long did it take before breathalyzers came out and drunk driving?
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, and don't get me wrong. There's some people who, I know a lot of people who use a little bit of cannabis throughout the day. They take a hit or two, and like it's almost part of their function, their normal functionality, and to a point where sometimes there's some people that, like if sometimes it's like, hey man, do you need to like step outside real quick, because it's just it's part of what they have been trained to help deal with an anxiety perhaps or whatnot. Right. But I feel like for the most part, when you're, let's just say like the equivalent of intoxicated, right? Like to me, if you have a drink, I don't know that you're necessarily, you're not legally intoxicated, but I feel like people who are legally like high, let's say that would be a good movie, Legally High. We should work on that. Like if you're messed up and high, I feel like you can pretty much kind of tell almost without a doubt, like a few different factors. There's got to be something with your eyes, and kind of similar to like a sobriety test, just to kind of check your motor skills. But again, the technologies, that would be something to really.
Yeah, no, they do have limited versions of that. They have law enforcement has what's called drug recognition experts, or DRE officers, that specialize in OWI training.
Sure.
So
Right.
their qualifications are able to detect that.
Handle.
I can't say that is very a strong defense, but I'm not an attorney to make an accurate assumption on that.
Right. Cora May, my sister, Weslowski now, says one of the biggest hazards I worry about is children, primarily in regards to edibles, because they may think it's just regular food and eat who knows how much of it. Parents and caretakers need to be responsible. Agree with the responsible part. I would expect that if I had kids in the house, like, right now, even I don't keep stuff out in the open for the most part. I got my little spot by my desk, got my little, like, it's actually like a stash box. It's even got a lock on it, but I usually don't lock it because then I can never find the key. So, and it's just me and my wife in the house, and she usually doesn't mess with my stuff. Oh, but I'm not home right now, honey. Don't touch the stash box. It's unlocked.
I would say just keep it in a locked container, or just like any other prescription pills that
med cabinet
are out there.
exactly.
Like child-proof containers, and just
my gosh,
elevate.
I'll tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you what. It is getting ridiculous out there, folks. This is not just kid-proof. I had to use my Leatherman to get this.
Yeah.
Like, look at the chunks I had to take out trying to pop. I don't even know. I bet you I can't even get it off now that I put it back on. You're supposed to push down and turn. That I'll get to deal with that again later. Like, yeah, it should be in something like that, but just make sure it works. And also those tins, the tins that who had, I think it was Loom, the gummies, they had tins for a while. And man, there's some nights you just sit there and. So yes, that is a good thing though, because if we can't get into it, a kid should definitely not get into it. But I also agree that we don't necessarily need to have gummy bears. Keep the gummies a different size, shape, and in that kind of stuff. Again, just to. We can eat a gummy regardless of what it looks like. So if we cannot make it look like a cute little kid thing, and it's just a square, awesome, in my opinion. Just again, because you never know what happens as far as if you're running around. Oh my gosh, I fell way behind on comments. I'm so sorry, guys. We're going to see if there's questions. Driving high is still driving under the influence. Exactly. Don't do it. They have the technology. They take you to hospital, get your blood, and they look that way. Do you happen to know, Dustin, and I don't know why you would, other than you're in the cannabis fields and you do some point of testing, but my understanding in the early, when Delta 8 was first coming out, people were getting tested as far as when they would get caught with something, and the police or different places, if they work somewhere, and they get randomly drug tested, they weren't able to test the difference between Delta 8 or Delta 9 THC. It was just a THC test. Do you know anything about, like the USDA, it sounds like you guys have, like that THC test, does that tell you your total THC, or is that strictly Delta 9 THC that you guys would be testing?
No, it's total THC. They test for total.
Gotcha. I was just curious on that one. I only smoke when I have a headache or a migraine, 1 to 2, and it's gone like it never happened. That's awesome. May have missed this question earlier, but THCA, will that be over the limit of testing before it's smoked? In most cases, no. Again, and they can't test it while it's on fire. But do you guys do any kind of testing? I assume you don't, but you guys don't do any kind of, like, you decarb and then test? That would be, again, the other side of
the there's
law,
different variations of testing, but yeah, they can check for they can check for Delta 9.
Okay.
As far as like the end product.
Sure.
But even in the present, like I was saying earlier, it still can show up for in small limited amounts before it's heated. Mostly for outdoor crops from my experience.
Right. Pete with Green Swan, the adult proof as well. Yeah, that stupid thing is adult proof. Baby food jar works. That's a good point. I'm wondering, is it hard to get a THCA cart that will get you stoned like THC? Would you need a different kind of Delta? I would check out the guys at Tabby's. They were able to figure out cartridges that were up to, I think you had it at like 40% THCA. He actually had to put on the label, like, take one hit, or, take one hit and then wait an hour to see if you need more. They definitely got some interesting different combinations of like an entourage effect going on over there. But I want to make sure we touch on this. Just a friendly reminder, no THC for pets, CBD only and from trusted sources. And make sure you read it too, because a lot of times it's based on the size of the dog, the size of the treat, how much you break it up, that kind of stuff. Excuse me. There's Tabby's. Oh, yep, makes THCA cart, 30% THC, 40% D8. Three Tall Pines website, look at their batch test for their THCA flower. It'll show you how and what they test for. There's a promo code for Tabby's. That's what is up. And one more we got here. Cindy I. Until it's legalized, I'll need to stick to buying legal products or traveling to Michigan. I did the whole growing your own thing from 88 to 2004. Fair. But no, I appreciate your time out here, Dustin. Did you have any kind of topics you wanted to touch on that we didn't get a chance to hit on yet?
I mean, we could talk all day. I mean, there's so many different aspects to cover. Like there's just so much right now, and we're still.
And if it's cool with,
go ahead. Yeah, it's right now everything's kind of like in the unknown for at least for the state of Wisconsin until
the good news
political
is
environment changes. I guess I don't know.
Right. But the good news is it's being talked about a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. When the movement started, when this kind of thing started, 3 months ago, I was kind of just like, felt like I was on my porch, like yelling to my neighbors. It just started really small, and obviously it's not like I'm the one who brought it but I like to think that just people getting out and about, gathering their voices, talking about it, I think it's starting to put some pressure on them, and especially if the maps change for the districting for our representatives. Now a lot of these people that have just been, hanging their hat on, they're going to be elected because the maps work in their favor. All of a sudden, they're going to have to approach some of these tougher issues. They can't just stand on the sidelines anymore. So hopefully bring some good change. We had a question on Delta 10. Looks like Jeremy's got that handled, which was, what is Delta 10? Delta 10's on its way out. It entered the market as a stronger than D8 cannabinoid because education was a marketing play. I don't believe it's stronger. Today, I would go with the D8 and THCA. Yeah, 10, when we had 10 for most people would be described more of like a light Adderall effect as opposed to a Delta 8 where you typically would get more of that chiller indica vibe in its pure form. Delta 10 was supposed to be more of a focusy type situation, but again, that's just been an interesting one as far as that goes and where we're going now. Voting them out if they're not working for us, exactly. They need to start doing something. Can't just keep sitting there. Keep up with the news, but I'll continue to indulge, legal or not. It keeps me sober. Been a recovering addict for 6 years. That's awesome, Rose. I'm glad you found. There's actually quite a few people that ended up reaching out over the last few months, and it's crazy to me how many people who are, when you get addicted to a very hard drug, and then you're being told that cannabis is a hard drug, so now you can't even go to cannabis. Like, in my opinion, personally, by all means, if cannabis helps you get off of heroin, that's a huge win, and I would never second guess that personally. Like, again, most people, and again, you could use cannabis too much as far as, like in my early days of college, my first semester when I got kicked out because I didn't go to classes because all I did was smoke. Like, that's not healthy. But if you are a fully functioning adult, you have a job, you prioritize what's important. If you got a family, you take care of your family. If it's just you take care of yourself. And you use cannabis to just take the edge off. That's what they do with alcohol. And I hate to compare the two, but again, if you're not hurting anybody else and you're living a productive life, I don't care what you take. and as long as you're educated on it, you're comfortable with it, and you don't have adverse effects. But that's just kind of my take on it. And again, the less ingredients that go into it, usually the better. And that's why the whole cannabis as a plant has just always been frustrating, because it's, again, you don't concoct this thing, and it's not, we're not making moonshine. That doesn't take that many steps or anything. More coming soon. But no, I would like to extend an invite to you, Dustin. I think we could do a few more topics in the future, and appreciate your insight, your input, and just really your time to spend here with us. And would look forward to doing a couple more of these if you wouldn't mind in the future.
Sounds good. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
All right. Cool, man.
But yeah,
we still gotta meet up.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, man, we're here to be educated, and you obviously are a key role in everything going forward as well. So look forward to that. Appreciate your time. Appreciate everybody who stopped out here's time. Appreciate our sponsors tonight. Higher Love. We got the promo code listed on the screen here when I take the comment down. And then same with Tabby's out here in Waukesha. Again, promo code BEANS20. If you want to check out some THCA flower and get it sent right to your house. Those guys don't mess around. There'll be some pictures later. So, but hey, man, I hope you have a good night, Dustin. I hope everybody else who stopped out does as well. And I'm sure I'll be talking to you guys soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.